Now, two fatal shootings of two teenagers this week took the total number of people murdered in London this year to 48. The rise of extreme violence is our talking point this morning. We're asking why that number has spiked and if it's just simply a London problem. Well, here to talk it over, Sam Rowe, the founder of the Academy of Hard Knocks, and Sheldon Thomas, the founder of Gangsline. Good morning to you both, gentlemen. Sam, I'll come to you first. London very much in the headlines at the moment, but when you look at the national statistics, the rise of knife crime is prevalent up and down the country.
Down the country, it's not just in London, it's in all the rural areas, local areas to me, Guildford, Farnborough. Every single town has got its own issues with kids, knives, baseball bats, guns. They use anything now. It used to be you could go out, have an argument with someone, you'd have fisticuffs on the lawn or whatever.
And you'll get home safe at the end of the night.
But now they bring out a gun, they bring out a knife. It's anarchy.
Sheldon, anarchy, I mean, that's a strong word to use. How has this escalated so much in recent years? Because you moved out of London 4 years ago because of this problem.
Well, for me, I totally agree with what he's saying, because the violence across the UK is really bad. And I think one of the reasons why is that we have agencies that's never lived it trying to dictate to communities about what they should do. And part of the problem is that you cannot dictate to communities who haven't really taken responsibility or believe that they have a problem. So if you look at particular communities, if you go into up north, maybe Norris Green, Croxteth, poor white communities, and you come down south into black communities, those two Pacific communities haven't really taken responsibility for what their children are doing. It's fine that we can look to government because government's got to take their share, but I feel that if the community doesn't take responsibility about what is happening, then how are you going to fix it when they don't really fully embrace that there is a problem? They want to blame everyone else.
So, Sam, if it's a blame game and these communities aren't owning the problem and taking responsibility for it, how do you change that? You work in communities.
I work in communities with young people, and we take their lives around mixed martial arts. But people say, "Oh, it's the parents' fault." It's the parents' fault. Well, the parents most of them are working 2 jobs to just keep a roof over their heads and feed their children. So they're working 2 jobs. They're not at home. They're not disciplining their children. They're not allowed to discipline their children at home no more. It's PC world we live in. They're not allowed to do that anymore.
Well, I think you are allowed to discipline your child if they're caught leaving the house with a knife.
Yes, I know, but the discipline has been taken away from parents.
I think I'd question that because because of the work that I do across the country, most of the parents don't actually work. And some of the parents collude with their kids involved in this lifestyle, not in the sense of carrying...
Is that a very niche... We're talking about a very niche group here in terms of parents being aware of what their children are doing. We're talking about gangs here.
I think I couldn't put a percentage of it, but what I would say is that there is a small percentage of parents that do collude. There's a small percentage that don't know what's going on, because obviously kids are not going to walk in the house and say, I'm a part of a gang or I sell drugs. But what we have to understand is the part that social media is playing into kind of exacerbating that to make that problem even... the YouTube, Snapchat, Instagram all play a part, and we're up against that. But for me, we have parents who are not parenting their children. You can't parent a child when they're 13. You have to start parenting that child when they're 1. And I feel what we're having in society is that society needs to look at how are we parenting our children. And a lot of these young people are growing up in houses where they don't feel loved. So they go out looking for a sense of belonging and obviously find themselves with negative peer groups.
See, this is difficult, isn't it? Because, Sam, therein lies the crux of the problem. It's very difficult for the authorities to intervene in family life. We're talking about a child's upbringing. We're talking about the love and respect they get or don't get from their parents and peers. How do you tackle something like that? Obviously, you're providing a space for children to come in and learn mixed martial arts as a way of getting off the streets. Yeah,
getting off the streets. I mean, it turns their life around. It gives them focus and makes them part of something. And we're teaching them discipline. We're teaching them respect. We've had 186 young people through my course, and none of them have gone on to commit crimes.
And were they in trouble before?
They were in trouble before they come to me. They were referred by all the agencies, from the police, from probation. And these kids have turned their lives around just in a 12-week course.
For me, and I think that's great, but I think for me, when you're dealing with a child outside of a family and that child still has to go back home to a loveless household, to a household doesn't know how to nurture him or her, doesn't know how to show that emotional love, what happens is these young men and girls go out looking. So I understand what he's doing in terms of the work that he's doing,
so
but for me, the biggest problem is that the society, we as a whole, have to ask ourselves, what kind of society do we want? Because at the moment, we have most of these young men and girls involved in this lifestyle. If you look at who's involved, the perpetrators and the victims, absent fathers are heavily involved around that. So we haven't even addressed absent fathers. We haven't addressed how does children go from not feeling loved to feeling loved, because that is the key here. Children who don't feel loved will go elsewhere looking for it. And I think that the problem is bigger than just looking at the increase in knife crime. I think the problem has to be, we have to address ourselves as society and to ask ourselves, what kind of parent am I going to be? Because that is the crux of matter. Remember, before they go to school, they have to come out of your home. And if they're undisciplined, unruly, rebelling, and playing into this YouTube euphoria around this gangster image, around the quick fix, let's make a lot of money quickly, then you're up against that as well as the family.
Yeah, well, Sheldon, you were so worried by the environment in London that you moved out of London to save your children from a similar
100%.
fate to when you got involved in gangs. And Sam, just a final word from you before we go. What would your advice be to parents? Because as Sheldon was saying, some parents aren't aware, some are aware. If you do have a child who, in their peer group, they are using knives and other objects to go to school just to protect themselves, what do you do? What do you say to them? How do you start that conversation?
How to start that? Well, you'd have to first take the knife off them if you can. It's just, you address it with, I mean, love starts at home, kindness starts at home. And if you're loved at home, and you're treated with respect at home, you're going to treat your people with respect out on the street. Some of these kids, they've got nowhere else to go. They've got nothing to do. They've shut all the new youth clubs. There's no youth clubs. There's no clubs like mine.
Government cutbacks again.
Yeah, government cutbacks. Anything that costs money. Everything costs money, and when parents haven't got the money to send their kids to the local football club or a local sports club or music school, what they're going to do? The kids are going to be out on the streets, hanging around in the corners.
Well, Sam Rowe and Sheldon Thomas, thank you so much for coming in to speak to us this morning. You paint a frightening picture, but I think we've explored some of the root causes of what's going on at the moment. Really interesting to speak to you. Thank you so much. Stay with us. Still to come here on Sunrise this morning, we'll find out why this is a major step forward in understanding our evolution.